Hi guys, my name is Lucky. This is my channel. I noticed that the video I posted about X-ray sword swallowing had kind of similar interaction than my old videos used to have when my channel wasn't hidden or sucking or whatever the problem is. So I thought it would be great to do another video on swords, and I thought I'd take you through my sword collection. So this is a little video to introduce you to all my lovely swords. This is pretty much all the swords I have at the moment. I have given some away. I have kind of donated some. I had some that were just way too big. I purchased them and didn't realize that they were like movie prop sized, actual sized, not swallowing size. So I'm going to introduce you to all my swords. This is pretty much all of the swords I have currently in my possession. I've given some away and donated some that I didn't really like or that were too big to even kind of move around the world. But I'm going to introduce you to all the swords and let you know which ones I swallow really often, which ones I've just kind of collected, and what's the difference and why. So yeah. By the way, if you could like, comment, share this video to people you think might like it, or subscribe to my channel, it would be really helpful because it's kind of dead. I'm going to start with the first sword that I ever swallowed, which was gifted to me by my mentors, Swing Shift Sideshow. I don't think they're performing together as a group anymore, but Andrew S. is the sword swallower in the Cirque du Soleil show Run in Vegas, like the live action ones. That's really cool. And they brought me this sword, this katana from Vegas, and it's definitely not a real katana. It's not even a very good replica. It's like made in China, but it's sturdy. I've super glued it back together and it has done me really well. So there's a little bit of discoloration here, and that's because I was quite lazy in the beginning with the whole clean it every time you swallow it thing. I don't know why, because I knew what the consequences were, which is basically the acids in your esophagus and stomach, which is where this one goes to in the end. Stomach's right there. Damage metal, so you've got to clean it every time. Wash it at least with water, dry it. So this blade is a little ganky, but it's still to this day one of my favorite swords to swallow. It's quite thick. I would say that when I don't use the katana for a long period and then I know I'm doing a show with it, I will probably swallow it at home before I leave for the airport, and then definitely once backstage. Whereas normally I don't have to swallow my swords before I go on stage to get myself ready. I know they're just going to kind of work. I think my second sword was this baby. This giant bitch. She's beautiful. I mean, so this is a real legit sword. This is a Napoleonic era rapier, and it had a much larger basket handle that came all out on this side and all around. I've actually had that chopped off so that it was easier to travel with and pack and just in general deal with. It's really heavy because it's weighted like a real sword. So swords are meant to be weighted in the handle and somewhere around here. Somewhere around here is the tipping point. This is probably my favorite sword aesthetically. It's so beautiful. Thin, pointy looking blade. It's extremely long. The blade is a lot longer than the katana, and the katana is quite long. So if we put the blades together, the rapier has, almost a foot on the katana. It's long compared to all the other swords. My scissor swords, which are quite famous, also not a feather on the rapier. And because it's so thin and because it's so heavy, it makes it really dangerous and really difficult to swallow. I used to swallow this sword a lot. I used it on a lot of stages. As soon as I started having like contracts in dinner shows and circuses, I decided not to have this sword in rehearsals because I knew any director that sees it will be like, that's the sword to swallow every day, and it's not the kind of sword that feels really comfortable and safe to swallow all the time. Currently, I can't even get this to the hilt, and I used to very often get this to the hilt. This goes all the way to the bottom of the stomach. I think it sits like 5-6 inches in the stomach, and you can get it further in if you've eaten a big meal because your stomach is stretched. It's wild. Currently, I think I can only get it to about here. I can only swallow to about here. I can't get it all the way down, and for a long time it was getting stuck kind of halfway. My theory on this is when you've got your esophagus and sword going down, if the sword is really thin, like this one, there's a lot of options for it to hit the sides. I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but like when the sword goes in, if it's very thin, there's a lot of area for it to make a mistake on its trajectory, on its angle. So if the sword is a few millimeters off on the angle that you insert it, or if your body position is a few millimeters off, and you've got this very long, thin blade, that's going to have more opportunity to get stuck in that very, very soft mucous membrane of your esophagus, and massive injury risk, obviously. This is an exceptionally heavy sword. It's probably, no, these are pretty on par. These are pretty similar weights, but this, you can see, is just so much thicker. When the sword kind of starts on the side and fills up a lot of surface area, there's less place for it to ask to go. It's probably just going to slide down there where the hole is. I don't know if it's possible for this to make any sense to anyone that's not a sword swallower. Basically what I'm trying to say is this sword is taking up more surface area in my esophagus, whereas this one is taking up very little surface area. So the angle of the top of the sword means there's more places for this to kind of stick into and go wrong. I don't know, somehow that's how it works. So this is a really difficult sword to swallow. I very rarely swallow it. I'm going to try right now because why not? I do have to say, normally I would olive oil my swords. It works as a great lubricant. But I don't have olive oil here, and it's more for when you're working like every night. As you can see, only really got to there, and I was trying to move to the left for it to hit the stomach and go down, but it just was kind of aggravating. I could feel it here. It didn't feel good. The pressure on my stomach or the opening of the stomach did not feel good. Ooh. So that was probably my second sword. I think one of the next swords that I got was this walking stick. How cool is that? And I rhinestoned the hell out of it because duh. So yeah, this is a walking cane sword. It's nice and thin and little and smooth and very, very lightweight. So these kind of skinny, thin swords are really easy to swallow if there's no weight. If this was really, really heavy, it would make that whole angle thing poking into esophagus thing a little bit more likely. This is also, I think I bought this from China and it got completely broken all underneath here. Different kinds of glue, there's gaffer tape holding it together. It is not a very stable table, but I still use it and it looks awesome. Around that time, I probably bought these daggers. This is probably the dagger I've used the most. I got 2 of them. They're German daggers. This is actually not a very comfortable sword to swallow. I can't really explain why, other than it just doesn't feel very soft and smooth. It kind of feels pointy and like almost sharp. It's not sharp, but if you were to take your fingers on the side and squeeze, this doesn't feel sharp at all because it's very thick. This one is so thin, when you put pressure, it actually feels kind of painful and sharp, and it's just not my favourite to swallow. I, however, have used this for years and years and years because I just haven't found another dagger that I liked. This was going to be one. This is definitely one that I could use. I haven't shaved it, haven't rhinestoned it, haven't done anything. Also, daggers are meant to be a little bit longer than this. It should be probably about to here, so not quite that short. At this length, they tend to stop just before the flap of opening. So it automatically kind of tickles you and your whole esophagus wants to close down, so it makes them really hard to swallow. When I first bought this, I was like, yeah, wicked, I've been swallowing all these big swords, I'm going to swallow this dagger, so cool, and I couldn't swallow it. And I remember I emailed my mentors, I was like, what's happening? This isn't right, like I'm a sword swallower and I can't swallow this sword. And they were like, chill your beans, that's kind of normal, especially if it's a really short dagger. They can be quite difficult to swallow. The more you know. One thing I have learned from all my colleagues and friends around the world, male and female, that are sword swallowers is we are all really, really different in how we learn, how we swallow swords, our approaches to what is an easy or difficult sword, our kind of routine or ritual that we do before or after we swallow. Some people can't eat any food. I definitely have to have eaten some food and have some saliva going on. So everyone has the kind of swords that they like, and it's just really, really varies. Some of the swords that I consider really easy to swallow have some of the properties of maybe a sword that I find really difficult to swallow, but there's something else about that sword that changes the overall ease of swallowing it. I'm sure none of this makes any sense.
Hey guys, I'm going to break this video up into a few because 12 minutes for 3 swords and I've got about 15, so this is going to take a while. The next video will be starting from Serpentine.